Monster Hunter World is hands down the best Monster Hunter game ever made. It takes every expectation and smashes it with something more cohesive, structured, and balanced than even I, a Monster Hunter fanatic, could have ever conceived. It's an absolute triumph for the genre and the start of a new era. Welcome to my review of Monster Hunter World. First off, although I purchased the game via the limited edition PlayStation 4 Pro in Japan, I was kindly provided a review copy of the game before release by Capcom, so a huge thank you to them for that. I played the review copy on my PlayStation 4 Pro in frame rate priority mode, so I can't comment on the performance of the other platforms just yet. Yes, I beat the last boss of the game, so I am qualified to review this game. We'll get into volume later, but this game is well loaded and prepped with things to do that will keep you busy for hundreds and hundreds of hours. I guess a good place to start is the game world, because it's in the title of the game. It's amazing how connected everything feels. Because the time of day is persistent between the hub town of Astera and each of the maps, the fact that you don't have to return to the hub town after a quest and you can just go to another map or go on another quest or continue where you are as a free hunt, everything feels incredibly connected. When you're in the ancient forest, you know, see, and feel that Astera and the rest of its colorful inhabitants are just a jog away. This gives it a real backdoors feeling that I really cannot get enough of. Instead of having dozens of maps, they went with just 5 and packed an incredible amount of depth into each one. A map consists of roughly 3 major territories, each with their own iconic monster that rules over that area, and one monster that kind of rules over the entire map. When I say rule, I mean it in the sense of ecology and survival of the fittest. It's totally normal for monsters to leave their favorite habitat and go through another, and this can cause all sorts of interesting things to happen, including turf wars between rival monsters, and mayhem where you're trying to kill one monster but suddenly it's a party and there are 3 large monsters in the same area. The most important takeaway in the realistic scope and ecology of all this is that you as a hunter feel insignificant. In past Monster Hunter games, you were the superstar and the maps were kinda like an arena for you to fight the large monster. But in this game, you really do feel like a hunter, in that you're entering a world that is not concerned with you, and one that won't be so forgiving if you start to disturb it. And most importantly, the large monsters have better things to do than to just fight you. So if you don't poke it, the world and the living and breathing life inside of it goes on. This is something that you have to experience to understand it, but the takeaway is that the game is very immersive, and that's the result of dozens and dozens of small things that are way too plentiful to list. The 14 weapons of Monster Hunter never felt better than in this game. Each maintains the core that has been there from the previous games, and each of the weapons gets some helpful additions to make them even more versatile and powerful. Monster Hunter is great in that when you play a different weapon, it's like playing a different game, and they've made it so easy to swap between weapons that you'd be nuts not to. Not only can you swap between Blade Master and Gunner weapons while using the same gear, but you can also reverse a weapon upgrade and get back the materials, making it easy to easily craft another weapon from those materials you had from another. While the demo had some questionable hitboxes, I didn't see that at all in the full game. The action is tight and nuanced, and the game ran absolutely wonderfully on my PlayStation 4 Pro. There is an absolute laundry list of small changes that they made to take out all that mundane stuff that had piled up in the franchise over the years, and they streamlined it so you only have to worry about the stuff that matters. You can gather super fast, track items that you want, objectives are clear, boring quest objectives are removed, there's story to back up each of the main quests, the armor system has been redone, which I'll cover in a separate video, and overall they just made things really easy to do and find. The effort in gameplay comes in the hunt that ensues once you get there. For the first time ever, they've made it so that there's no distinction between offline and online modes. You are always online. Hunt alone or hunt with others, your choice, although the game does scale the monster's health to match multiple hunters. The story mode, which comes in the form of assignment quests, was created mainly to be played alone since there's a lot of rich and colorful real-time cutscenes. But you are given the option to call in more players once the story cuts away and the hunt starts. This is definitely wonky if you're trying to do all the story quests with a friend, but in order to protect the narrative, I can see why they did this. The rest of the quests are very easy to jump online and do with others. I played the game completely solo as I always do, although I did team up with Arix Gaming to take down Nergigante as he was giving me a bit of trouble. Trust me, you think you beat him in the demo, but that was nothing compared to what he's like in the real game. You are going to die, and die hard. For the most part, the game is pretty accessible and not overly hard, especially for low rank quests, which is the first half of the story. Most semi-experienced players can probably plow right through low rank, but keep in mind that the side quests that open up will bolster Astera, and the upgrades are going to be key in fueling your drive through high rank. For high rank, the difficulty is not super hard until you hit some of the endgame walls, which will really force you to upgrade your entire outfit and just get better at the game before you can plow through to the next story quest. I guess what I'm trying to say is that it's very accessible to new players without being too easy or too hard, and there is that depth and challenge there for the experienced players once they get later in the game. The thing the game does really well though is the difficulty curve. It's such a smooth incline, and it goes with your natural ability to get better at the game and learn it, so that it never feels like it's suddenly getting too hard. That being said, newcomers will likely have a learning curve to jump over, but with the training area and the on-screen prompts, and some of my tutorial vids, I'm sure they'll do just fine. This is by far the easiest Monster Hunter ever to get into. The endgame is where stuff gets really exciting. The top monsters are an absolute riot to hunt, and they have so many different motions, and when you combine that with a really interactive environment that they know how to use really well, you're looking at a real challenge. Some of the most memorable hunts I've ever had were in reviewing this game. Environments were never really part of the equation in the past. They were either just eye candy or trampolines to jump on and over, but now monsters can really use their home turf to their advantage. Story. It feels funny to even say the word story in Monster Hunter in the same sentence, but yeah, the game has a nice story backed with excellent localization, making each character feel unique. I do suggest that you play it with English voice on if you're an English speaker. I do feel it's a lot better than the Monster Hunter gibberish, which to me was less the classic grunting and more them speaking some made up language that you'll start to hear repeat. The reasoning behind each quest is sound, and it gives you a lot of context to what you are doing. I'm happy to say that the detailed monster intros when you first meet a monster for the first time are back. Volume. Every time a Monster Hunter game comes out, in order to do reviews and videos, I end up brute forcing my way through the story. This is by far not the ideal way to enjoy it. It's like taking a fine wine and gulping it down in a styrofoam cup. Past games, provided I knew which quests were needed in order to advance progression, took me about 25 to 30 hours or so to clear. This game took me 50 hours. I imagine for most people they'll get through the story in like 50 to 75 hours, but that is just the story. The rest of the game and all the wonderful expansions, unlocks, and monsters still await. And of course they're going to be adding free content updates as well. This is all just a very long-winded way of saying that this game may not have a huge monster roster compared to some of the past 3DS games, but the monsters and hunts are a heck of a lot more detailed and dynamic, and there are a few new systems that they have in place to ensure replayability. Some of these are late game things, so I don't want to go into detail here because it's kind of a spoiler, but just know that there's some really great end game content. Complaints. Now, I'm not one to critique a game's every aspect and pick on every little thing that I feel could have been better, because you can have like one complaint against 100 compliments, and that means that that complaint really doesn't matter. Still, if I had to choose a few, here they are. First, the game could do a better job of explaining the loop to new players. They have some really great tutorials, but I imagine most people are just going to try to plow through the story quests one after another, and when they hit a wall, it's going to feel tall. But the idea is that you're also doing expeditions, optional quests, grinding for new weapons and armor, and all other types of stuff. The mid to late game story quests are like exams, and only when you are ready are you going to be able to take them on. Second, there's one mid-game mechanic that I think the game fails to communicate properly, so let me do it for you here. You are asked to investigate the tracks of an unknown monster at the start of high rank. So you'd think that you can just go into each map, look all over the place for the tracks, but you'd be wrong. Just continue playing the game and clearing quests, and it'll naturally fill up the investigation bar, and you'll trigger the story to continue. Try to do it by finding a few random tracks per map, and you'll drive yourself nuts. They did this in order to stall you because high rank is unlocked for every single map in the game all at once. So you're supposed to use that opportunity to gather and hunt and make a nice high rank set before you continue on. Yes, you heard that right, it's a compliment. The high rank maps are now unlocked all at once, so to the experienced hunter, when you bust into high rank, it's like a kid in a candy shop. Honestly, I'm probably going to end up making like 100 videos on Monster Hunter World. The game is absolutely stunning. At first I was really concerned because I consume Monster Hunter outside most of the time, and this being on the PlayStation 4 and Xbox means that I'll end up playing it overall less than if it were a handheld game. But seriously, it is worth the trade-off. The game is so rich of an experience that I don't know how I'm going to be able to go back to previous games. I hope the portable team though is making something for Switch so that one day I can get my Monster Hunter fix both indoors and out. I don't know what to say, Monster Hunter World is an absolute masterpiece, and like Zelda Breath of the Wild, it marks a huge milestone for the genre and the franchise, and we're not going to be able to go back after this. It has refined and redefined what the hunting genre can and should be. It's a system seller for sure, and I hope we see a flood of new hunters. There has never been a better time to get into Monster Hunter. Yes, I plan on making tons of videos, including tutorial videos for Monster Hunter World, but it will take some time because I want to do them right, and there is a lot of depth and nuance to each of the weapons that I want to make sure we understand before I make a video. However, if you are just starting out, the base of the weapons are pretty much the same as the previous games, so if you check out my Monster Hunter Generation weapon tutorials in the meantime, the guild style, which is the bulk of that tutorial, will still give you a great overview, I think, of how to use the weapon and what the main combos are. Anyways, what are you doing on YouTube? Go and buy the game, get it in your system, and start playing! Monster Hunter World is amazing, so don't miss out.